TIFU by using my company's Slack bot to sex my girlfriend. So this happened about 2 months ago, and I've only recently stopped waking up in cold sweats from it. For context, I, 32M, work at a mid-sized tech company that prides itself on being playfully professional. Think casual dress code, ping pong tables, beer in the fridge, and an over-reliance on Slack for literally everything. Like, people will Slack the person sitting right next to them instead of speaking. One of our developers, a guy named Jared, built a custom Slack bot for the team. It's a chatbot that you can send commands to, and it'll do things like schedule meetings, tell you who's out of office, or send reminders. But it also had a note-to-self feature. You could DM the bot with something like /note buy groceries or /note check Q2 numbers, and it would store it in a private list only you could access later. Super useful. I started using it as a kind of digital sticky note system, and honestly, I got so used to typing /note that it became second nature. Enter my girlfriend, who we'll call Sam. We've been dating for a year, and things are going great. We live together, we laugh a lot, and we have what I would describe as a very lively sex life. I mention that because it's relevant, unfortunately. One Thursday afternoon, around 3 p.m., I was in the middle of a long string of mind-numbing Zoom calls. Sam texted me something that snapped me out of my meeting coma. Guess who bought new lingerie and is working from home with nothing but a robe on? Naturally, I opened the message, grinned like a pervert, and responded with something along the lines of pics or it didn't happen. She sent back a photo. Tasteful, but spicy. Definitely NSFW. I smiled like a doofus and thought I should send her something back later. Maybe some flirty text or more. You know how it is when you're bored, half listening to a product roadmap call, and suddenly a sexy distraction lands in your lap. So I alt-tabbed to Slack, intending to jot down a note to self to send her a sexy message that night when I was home. Nothing crazy, just a little reminder so I wouldn't forget and miss the moment. I typed, /note send Sam that thing I wrote. Maybe add the part about the kitchen counter. She'll love it. Use the one with her name moaning. She said it made her blush. Yes, that exact sentence. I remember it clearly because I will never, ever forget the horror that followed. I hit enter, but nothing happened. No confirmation from the bot. No message disappearing into the void like it usually did. It just sat there, in the general channel, the public one, with every employee in the company, including HR, including my boss, including Jared, the guy who made the bot. I stared at the message for a solid 2 seconds, convinced it had to be a glitch. Maybe it looked like it went to general, but it didn't actually.
Right? Wrong.
Within 10 seconds, I got a Slack DM from Jared. Dude. Then another from my boss. Can you delete that ASAP? Then a third from someone in HR. Hi, I think we should chat. The general channel exploded. Someone responded with a popcorn gif. Another person said, that's one way to spice up Q3. I could practically hear the office erupting into laughter and whispers, even though most of us were remote. It was the single most humiliating moment of my professional life. Worse than the time I accidentally screen-shared my Amazon cart full of, let's just say, intimate items. I scrambled to delete the message, but the damage was done. Slack doesn't really delete messages immediately, especially not if people already saw them. I ended up leaving my desk, walking around the block twice, and seriously considering jumping into traffic. When I got back, I had a 15-minute touch base with HR. It was mercifully brief. They were more amused than angry, though I did have to complete a respectful communication in the workplace training module. I also had to issue a public apology in the general channel, which might have been the worst part. I kept it professional, but short. Something like, apologies for the inappropriate message earlier, was meant to be private. Totally my mistake. Won't happen again. Of course, that didn't stop my coworkers from turning it into a meme. For the next week, someone would randomly type, use the one with her name moaning into conversations. They printed it out and taped it to the office coffee machine. Someone even made it their Slack status for a while. Sam thought it was hilarious. She laughed so hard she cried when I told her. Then she sent me another picture to make me feel better, which, while appreciated, only reminded me why I need to keep my personal life very far away from my work tech. Needless to say, I don't use the /note function anymore. Or any bots. Or Slack if I can help it. I've become a notepad guy. A handwritten notes guy. A guy who double-checks everything before hitting send. The incident now lives in our company's lore. We have a shared Google Doc called Great Slack Moments. And guess what's at the top of the list? My sex to self. I guess there are worse things to be remembered for. But still, every time I type in a text field now, I hesitate. Just a little. Because in the words of my boss right after the incident, you've officially ruined the word note for everyone. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by pretending to be fluent in German to impress my girlfriend's parents. So this happened a few months ago, but the sheer weight of secondhand embarrassment I experienced still haunts me at random moments in the shower. My girlfriend, Lena, and I have been dating for a little over a year. Things were getting serious, and she finally invited me to meet her parents over the holidays. Lena is German-American. She was born in the US, but both of her parents are from Germany. While she's fluent in both English and German, her parents primarily speak German at home, though they can manage English fairly well. Here's the thing, I took German in high school. For 2 years. And when I say took, I mean I scraped by with a C+ average and barely retained anything aside from Wist die Bibliothek and Ich habe einen Bleistift. But for some reason, I got it into my head that dusting off my ancient language skills and pretending to be semi-fluent would not only impress her parents, but show initiative, respect, and charm. No idea why I thought this was a good idea. Lena even told me, "Don't worry, just speak English, they won't mind." But my dumb lizard brain heard that and went, "No, this is how I win them over. Go big or go home." So in the week leading up to the visit, I binge-watched German YouTube channels, ran Duolingo like a man possessed, and practiced phrases into Google Translate like I was preparing for the UN. I rehearsed everything. How to say, "Thank you for having me. Dinner is delicious. It's so nice to meet you." And even a few modest jokes I found on a German forum, thinking humor would be a solid bridge builder. The big day arrives. Lena and I fly into Munich, and her parents pick us up from the airport. Her mom greets me warmly with a "Hello, Schondike kennen Sie lernen," and I respond confidently, "Ja, ich bin auch glücklich," which literally means yes. I am also happy. Not terrible, but not exactly an organic response. Lena shoots me a look. The look of a woman beginning to realize that her boyfriend may have overestimated his own intelligence. We get to their home, and her dad offers me a beer. I try to say, "Yes, thank you, I'd love one," but what comes out is, "Ja, danke, ich liebe dich," which means, "Yes, thank you, I love you." Her dad freezes mid-pour. Lena chokes on her laughter. I realize what I've just said and immediately backpedal, trying to clarify. Nein, ich meine ich liebe es. Das Bier. Ich liebe das Bier. Now I'm just shouting that I love beer. Dinner that night is a parade of disasters. I try to say the food is delicious, das Essen ist lecker, but instead I say, das Essen ist lecken, which is basically the food is to lick. Her mom gives me a tight-lipped smile like she's unsure whether to laugh or be concerned. I attempt to say the chicken is cooked perfectly, but end up saying, das Huhn ist sehr tot, meaning the chicken is very dead. As we eat, Lena's parents are being incredibly polite, smiling and nodding, occasionally glancing at each other in a way that definitely said, "Are we sure he's not having a stroke?" I try to salvage the moment by telling a German joke I memorized from Reddit. The joke relied heavily on wordplay that I didn't fully understand, but I went for it. Here's the joke in German. Was ist orange und Loft durch den Wald? Ein Wanderin. What's orange and walks through the forest? A mandarin that hikes. It's a pun on mandarin and wandern, but what I said was, Was ist orange und die Luft durch den Wald? Ein Wandervogel. Which translates to what is orange and walks through the forest. A migratory bird. Not only does it ruin the joke, but also makes it sound like I just made some weird observational statement about wildlife. Silence. I laugh anyway, a forced chuckle like I'm giving myself CPR. Lena is burying her face in her hands. Her dad actually says, interesant, the international phrase for what the hell was that? At this point, Lena switches to English and starts translating the conversation to spare everyone. But I don't give up. I keep throwing out random German phrases I half remembered. I try to compliment the decor and end up saying, Dein Haus ist sehr alt, which means, your house is very old. Her mom, bless her soul, says Danke, with the rising intonation of a woman questioning every decision that led her to this moment. The next morning, determined to redeem myself, I offer to help her dad with some work in the garage. He's fixing something with a power drill, and I try to say I can help you, which is Ich kann dir helfen. But what I say instead is Ich kann dich fassen, which means I can touch you. He stops mid-drill and just stares at me. And fasten, he repeats. At this point, Lena comes running in, dragging me back into the house like a misbehaving dog. She sits me down and says, Okay, no more German. None. At all. The rest of the trip, I stuck to English. Her parents, to their immense credit, pretended nothing happened and even started making little German-English puns to include me, like calling me Bierfreund or jokingly asking if I liebe the salt. It helped break the ice a little, but I knew the damage had been done. Back in the US, Lena's dad sent me a t-shirt with Ich liebe Bier printed in bold letters across the front. I wear it with pride. Shameful, cringing pride. To by letting my boss think I was in a cult and accidentally proving him right. It started with an innocent lie. Isn't that always how it starts? So I work for a small marketing firm in Chicago. We're not big enough for a full HR department, so it's a pretty relaxed atmosphere where your boss doubles as your HR, your finance manager, and occasionally the guy who orders lunch. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone's business, and if you call in sick, someone's going to text you a feel better GIF and a meme about how they hope it's not COVID again. That's relevant because a few weeks ago, I needed a random Thursday and Friday off. Not for a vacation. Not for a wedding. Just for something personal that I didn't feel like explaining. That's where the lie started. I told my boss, Jerry, that I had to attend a spiritual retreat with my family. That sounds vague and respectable, right? It's just weird enough to shut down follow-up questions without making it sound like I was going to Vegas to do coke with a llama. Jerry is the kind of guy who thinks he's open-minded because he tried ayahuasca once in Peru, so he just nodded solemnly and said, Sometimes you gotta reset your inner compass.
Cool. Perfect.
What I actually did that weekend was help my cousin move to Milwaukee. That's it. No big secret. I just didn't want to get guilt-tripped into working remote those 2 days, or be asked why I couldn't move a simple relocation to a weekend. But here's where the universe decided to punish me for being a liar. The following Monday, I came back into the office, fresh from a weekend of lugging a used sectional couch up 3 flights of stairs. Jerry calls me into his office, which is rare because most of our meetings happen over Slack or while microwaving leftover Thai food. He's got this weird, almost excited look on his face. Like a kid who just found out the tooth fairy is real. He leans in and says, Hey, man, I've been thinking about what you said. About your retreat. I nod slowly. My brain is trying to catch up. I already forgot I lied about that. He continues, You don't have to hide it. If you're part of something bigger, some kind of spiritual collective, you can trust me. I've been searching for something like that myself. Cue the alarm bells. I try to steer the conversation back to Q2 marketing goals, but no, Jerry is off the rails. He starts Googling cults in the Chicago area. Out loud. In front of me. Asking if any of these names sound familiar. I try to laugh it off. Nah man, it's not like that. It was just a low-tech weekend, phones off, nature, you know. I'm sweating. But now he's invested. He starts asking me hypothetical questions over the next week. Things like, Do you think society could function better if we lived communally? Or what would you do if someone told you the world was ending in 5 years? I answer like a normal person because, again, I'm not in a cult. But I can see Jerry watching me like I'm Neo, and he's Morpheus offering me the red pill. At this point, you'd think it couldn't get weirder. Oh, buckle up. One morning, I come in and find a thick manila folder on my desk. It's unmarked. Inside is a printed, 17-page manifesto titled, The Way Back to Oneness. It's riddled with pseudo-philosophical jargon, drawings of eyes inside triangles, and a handwritten note from Jerry that just says, "Thought you might connect with this." Now I'm panicking. I don't know how to confront him without revealing I made the whole thing up. So I ignore it. I throw the manifesto into my bottom drawer and pretend it never happened. Then, 2 days later, Jerry doesn't show up to work. Then he doesn't show up the next day. By Friday, our tiny office is buzzing. Someone says they saw Jerry at a Greyhound station with a giant hiking backpack. Someone else swears he sold his car. That weekend, I get a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It's Jerry. He says he's on a journey now, that he found his tribe, and that the veil is lifting. He thanks me, thanks me, for awakening him. He says he'll check in when the winds change. I save the voicemail, half for evidence, half because it still doesn't feel real. The following Monday, the regional VP shows up at our office. Turns out, Jerry didn't formally resign. He just vanished. Disconnected all company accounts. Took his laptop and the petty cash fund. The VP wants answers. Guess who's the last person he talked to? Yeah. So now I'm sitting in a conference room with a lawyer, 2 regional managers, and the VP, trying to explain that I am not in a cult and that I don't know why Jerry thinks I am. I show them the manifesto. I even let them hear the voicemail. It does not help. Eventually, I have to admit I lied about the retreat, which opens an entirely different can of worms about employee honesty and misuse of PTO. I don't get fired, but I get put on some kind of weird performance improvement plan that includes a mandatory weekly check-in where I have to state, for the record, that I'm not recruiting anyone to leave the company. Fast forward to last week. Jerry's been gone for a month. HR, they hired a contractor, finally wipes his accounts and clears his office. I sneak in when no one's looking to see if he left anything behind. On his desk is a notebook. Just one. Open to a page with my name in block letters. Under it he wrote, "He is the first light. He walks without seeing." And now I sleep with one eye open. A few months ago, I, 29M, decided to throw a murder mystery dinner party. You know, one of those immersive games where everyone dresses up and plays a character, and someone's murdered, and the rest of the night is spent solving the mystery. I'd been to a couple of them and thought it would be a fun twist on the usual Saturday night hangouts. I live in a decent-sized house just outside the city, and it was the perfect setting, slightly old-fashioned, a little creaky, with enough rooms to give it that Clue-like vibe. I bought a full murder mystery kit online that came with a scripted plot, character roles, invitation templates, and all the necessary materials. The theme was 1920s Prohibition-era mafia. Gangsters, flappers, speakeasies, the whole thing. I sent out the invites to a group of 14 friends and coworkers, telling them their assigned character names, costumes, and basic backgrounds. Everyone was super into it. People were texting me for days talking about outfit ideas, trying on accents, researching their characters' motivations. I was pumped. The night of the party arrives. I've got jazz playing, dim lighting, fancy cocktails, themed snacks, everything on point. People arrive dressed to the nines. Pinstripe suits, feather boas, suspenders, fake cigars, the works. I give everyone a little folder with more details about their characters and the evening's goals. We're supposed to mix, mingle, and try to figure out who the killer is once the murder happens midway through dinner. Everyone's playing their roles perfectly. We're about 2 hours in when the lights flicker dramatically, time to the moment when the scripted murder happens and the victim, my friend Casey, dramatically falls to the floor in the living room, clutching a fake knife to his chest. Everyone gasps. People scream. Drinks are spilled. It's glorious. Casey is laying there, pretending to be dead. We all gather around, reading our clues, trying to deduce what happened. At some point, someone says he's really committing to the bit. He hadn't moved in 10 minutes. I bend down and nudge him. All right, man, time to get up. No response. His face was too pale. I touch his neck. No pulse. Casey, 28, had actually died. Real life. Not the game. Not a prank.
Dead.
The mood shifted instantly.
Panic.
Screaming. Someone called 911. 2 guests were in tears. One guy ran to the bathroom and puked. Everyone else stood around in complete shock, not knowing what to do. I kept thinking this had to be a prank. Some elaborate twist I didn't know about. But I knew deep down it wasn't. Paramedics arrived.
Cops too.
They declared him dead at the scene. No sign of foul play, they said. Possibly a heart attack or sudden cardiac arrest. Here's where things got way worse. Since this was a murder mystery party, and Casey died with a fake knife in his chest, the entire setup looked real. Too real. The cops looked around and were like, "What the hell is going on here?" I had to explain, still dressed in a white tuxedo jacket and fake mustache, that it was all a game. They didn't believe me at first. Thought it was some kind of staged killing. When I tried to show them the murder mystery kit, one of them told me to sit down and not touch anything. They thought I was tampering with evidence. One of my coworkers, who in the game was the murderer, freaked out so badly she started screaming, "I didn't kill him. I swear to God," and had to be physically removed from the room. It took hours to get things sorted. They took statements from every guest, collected the fake weapons as evidence, and kept asking about motives. The line between fiction and reality had blurred in the worst way. Eventually, they determined it wasn't a homicide, just tragically bad timing. Casey had an undiagnosed heart condition, they said. But for the rest of the night, and weeks after, people couldn't shake how surreal it was. Now, here's the part that completely ked my life. News got wind of it. Some genius neighbor must have tipped off a local reporter. Next thing I know, there's a story online. Man dies at murder mystery party in grisly twist of fate. Photos of my house. Blurry image of me outside in suspenders and holding a cocktail. My name. Social media went nuts. Everyone thought I planned a party so intense it killed someone memes. Comments. Some people thought it was fake, like a viral marketing stunt. Others said I should be arrested. My boss called me into his office and said the whole situation was reflecting poorly on the company. Even though I had nothing to do with the death, I was let go a month later under vague terms. My reputation was toast. I'd go to bars and overhear strangers talking about that murder party guy. I deleted my socials. And worst of all, I lost a friend. Casey was one of the best dudes I knew. Kind, funny, loyal. He'd gone out of his way to learn his character's backstory and even brought vintage whiskey to fit the theme. He died doing something fun, but I still feel like I unintentionally made a farce of his death. His family was surprisingly understanding, though. They told me he would have found the whole thing insanely poetic, which made me cry in their kitchen. I haven't thrown a party since. I barely host game nights. People still bring it up, sometimes as a joke, sometimes not. But it's always there in the background. TIFU by turning a pretend crime into a real tragedy, and now I'm the punchline to a very dark joke I never wanted to tell. TIFU by accidentally turning my roommate into a neighborhood cult leader. It all started with a bet. A stupid, drunk bet on a Friday night after one too many hard seltzers, and way too much time spent watching conspiracy theory videos. My roommate Jake and I were sitting on our crusty secondhand couch, arguing about how easy it would be to start a cult. He swore anyone with the right charisma could convince a group of people to worship a light bulb if they tried hard enough. I said no way. People aren't that gullible. So naturally we made a bet. Jake, ever the chaotic agent of nonsense, declared that by the end of the month, he could get at least 10 strangers to believe he was a conduit of divine truth. I dared him to do it. We shook hands, sealed it with a shot of whatever was left in our freezer. I think it was a mixture of tequila and ice cream-flavored vodka, which I do not recommend, and forgot about it for a few days. Until Jake started wearing the robe. I came home from work the following Tuesday and found him sitting cross-legged in the backyard, wearing what appeared to be an old bathrobe with golden duct tape designs on it. He had a strainer on his head. Yes, like the pasta kind. He looked like a medieval monk who'd lost a bet at a hardware store. "What in the actual hell are you doing?" I asked. "Beginning the awakening," he said solemnly. He called himself the vessel. He spoke in riddles, quoted Yoda, and made proclamations about the great alignment that was apparently coming at the next full moon. At first, it was hilarious. He even printed pamphlets using my printer, without asking, mind you, filled with absolute gibberish. Gems like, "The broccoli speaks only to the worthy," and "Cleanse thyself in the fridge of knowing." I didn't think anyone would take him seriously. I assumed we'd all get a laugh. He'd owe me $50 and we'd move on. Then Sandra showed up. Sandra was our neighbor from 2 houses down. Sweet lady, early 40s, very into herbal teas and dream catchers. I guess she read one of Jake's pamphlets that he'd left in the community mailbox area as a joke. She knocked on our door that Saturday, asked for the vessel, and they talked in the backyard for 2 hours. 2 hours. The next day, she came back with 3 friends. They brought food offerings. Organic hummus and kombucha. I don't know what he told them, but they left our house with their eyes shining like they'd just heard the voice of God. I was both impressed and mildly terrified. By the end of the week, there were 12 regulars. They sat in our yard every evening, dressed in mismatched robes, meditating, chanting nonsense that Jake made up on the spot. He created sacred rituals like the unplugging, where everyone had to turn off their phones and hum the Tetris theme song while passing around a potato as a symbol of unity. I swear to you, I am not making this up. It got worse. Jake started giving sermons in the park down the street. Word spread fast, partly because he recorded them and uploaded them to YouTube under the name Truth from the Tap. His subscriber count hit 15K in a week. Local news picked it up. People thought he was either a genius performance artist or an enlightened spiritual figure. It didn't help that he was annoyingly good-looking with a jawline that could slice cheese and a mysterious, smirking charisma that made people want to follow him. At this point, I tried to pull the plug. I told Jake the bet was over. He'd won. $50. Congratulations. Now stop before this turns into Waco Light. But he just smiled and said, "The path has already begun, brother. It is not mine to end." He started calling me brother unironically. Things escalated dramatically when he announced he was holding a 3-day revelation retreat at a campground outside town. I told him this was a bad idea. He told me the broccoli had spoken. I refused to go. The retreat happened. People attended. Lots of people. Over 100, apparently. They fasted, did interpretive dance in the rain, and spent one entire afternoon building a monument out of canned beans. Nobody died, but someone did get hypothermia trying to cleanse themselves in a freezing creek at midnight. That was the final straw for me. I reported him. Well, not him directly. I called the parks department and said there was some kind of unauthorized large gathering happening at the campground involving possible health violations. They shut it down. The cultists scattered. Jake got hit with a fine and had to attend a very awkward city council meeting.
He was pissed.
I told him I did it because I was worried someone was going to get hurt. He said I was interfering with the unfolding of the cosmic yoke. I told him the only thing that was unfolding was a lawsuit if he didn't stop. Things got cold between us after that. He moved out 2 weeks later. Said he needed to find soil more fertile for revelation. Last I heard, he'd gone to Oregon. Started something called the Radiant Table. Apparently, they meet weekly in a converted diner and worship an invisible entity named Frank. He has a Patreon. He's making over $3,000 a month. I lost a roommate, possibly a friend, and definitely the security deposit. But worst of all, I lost the bet. Because he really did get 10 strangers to believe in him. He got 100. Today I ed up by accidentally joining a cult while trying to impress a girl at a farmer's market. Let me preface this by saying I'm usually not the type to chase girls, especially not in a borderline stalkerish way, but this girl, Sophie, was different. She had this quiet intensity about her. She was wearing a bandana with avocados on it, had a tote bag that said support local bees, and was selling these jars of honey with little hand-drawn bees on the label. I don't even like honey, but I bought 3 jars just to start a conversation. She told me the honey was from a community apiary in the foothills and mentioned they do tours every Sunday. I said, "Oh wow, I love bees," like a total liar, and she smiled. It was one of those smiles that makes your brain go blank and your stomach flip. Before I knew it, I was promising I'd come out next Sunday to check it out. She jotted the address on the back of her business card, which said Sunridge Harmony Collective, reconnecting through nature. In hindsight, red flag. I show up that Sunday, and it's not just beekeeping. The apiary is on this massive property in the hills with wooden cabins, vegetable gardens, and people wearing robes made from what looked like recycled curtains. I figure, okay, maybe it's a crunchy communal farm situation. Not my vibe, but Sophie's here, and I'm already down the rabbit hole. She gives me a hug when she sees me and introduces me as a new seeker, which I thought was just flowery language for guest. Nope. Everyone starts clapping, and someone rings a bell. I'm immediately ushered into something called a recalibration circle. It's me, Sophie, and about a dozen people sitting on straw mats around a man in his 60s with an uncomfortably open linen shirt and a beard that could house wildlife. This man, who they call Elder Tom, says, "Welcome, brother," and proceeds to give a 45-minute monologue about the toxicity of digital frequencies and how bees are messengers from the higher plane. I try to subtly tell Sophie I'm not really into the whole spiritual thing, and she whispers, "It's not spiritual, it's natural law," which somehow sounds worse. I try to play it cool, assuming this'll be a one-time thing. But after the circle, they serve us kombucha that tastes like fermented Band-Aids, and someone gives me a wooden necklace with a carved bee on it and says, "You're one of us now." At this point, I'm getting nervous. I try to make an excuse to leave, but Sophie looks genuinely hurt and says, "The bees chose you. You can't just ignore that." I don't want to be rude, so I say I just need to check on my cat and promise I'll come back. Big mistake. All week I get texts from unknown numbers with messages like, "Trust in the Queen," and "Shed the plastic skin." Sophie texts me a selfie of her holding a honeycomb up to her face like a phone and says, "Listening to the hive." You hear it too now, right? I do not hear it. I decide I need to ghost the entire situation, maybe change my number, and definitely avoid that farmer's market. But then Sunday rolls around again and they show up at my house. 3 of them. In a white biodiesel van with bees painted on the side. One of them's holding a jar of honey. The same guy hands it to me and says, "For the pain you're causing." I try to shut the door, but they've wedged a sandal in the frame. They're not threatening exactly, but there's a weird intensity. I tell them I'm just overwhelmed and I need space. They back off. Or so I think. That night, I hear buzzing. Like a lot of buzzing. I go outside and discover that someone somehow has released bees into my mailbox.
Hundreds of them.
I get stung on the neck and spend the night in urgent care with a swollen jaw and an EpiPen bill that wrecks my deductible. The next day, there's a note stuck in my door. "The hive resents betrayal." I start to panic. I go online and try to find out more about the Sunridge Harmony Collective. Turns out, they've been investigated 3 times for non-traditional wellness practices and coercive community rituals. There's a Reddit thread with a former member who said they made him eat only royal jelly for a week and meditate inside a giant hive made of twigs and tarps. I try blocking Sophie's number. She starts emailing. Then a physical letter shows up. It's written in some sort of hexagonal script, like actual hexagon paper, each cell filled with tiny writing. I swear I can smell honey through the envelope. At this point, I realize I've gone from flirtation to potential cult escapee in under 2 weeks. I pack a bag and crash at my friend Eric's place. He's a software engineer and not the kind of guy who'd be impressed by phrases like buzz alignment or nectar of awakening. He lets me stay, no questions asked, except when I explain why I'm there, and he has to pause the game he's playing to stare at me for a full minute. A few quiet days pass. Then Eric gets a voicemail. It's someone chanting. We can't make out the words, but there's drumming and what might be wings fluttering. He plays it for me, and I actually break out in hives. Psychosomatic, probably. Still terrifying. I finally decide to report it. Go to the cops and everything. They don't take me seriously at first, probably because I opened with "I think a bee cult is stalking me." But when I show them the letter and pictures of the bee-filled mailbox, they agree to file a report. Nothing actionable, but it makes me feel slightly more sane. Here's the kicker. Last week, I go back to the farmer's market with Eric, mostly to see if Sophie's still there, or if the whole thing was some kind of fever dream. Her stand is empty, but there's a new guy selling hot sauce in the same spot. We start chatting. Normal guy. We buy a bottle. As we walk away, he says, "Watch out for that honey girl, man. She gave my buddy shingles."
So yeah.
I accidentally joined a cult, got bee-stalked, and may have narrowly avoided being inducted into something way darker than a quirky apiary co-op. All because I tried to flirt. Moral of the story: if someone says the bees chose you, run. Last summer, I thought I had finally met someone that made all the bad dates, ghostings, and awkward Tinder small talk worth it. Her name was Maya, and she was different in all the ways that make you believe you're living in the opening montage of a rom-com. Smart, weird, stunning, and deeply into spiritual stuff. Like Reed's Ram Dass on purpose into it. We met at a bookstore, shared a love for weird fiction, and before I knew it, we were spending weekends together. The chemistry was insane. She had this calm presence that made me want to be a better version of myself, like the kind of guy who drinks green smoothies and meditates instead of chugging Monster and rage-scrolling Twitter. So when she invited me to join her on a 10-day silent meditation retreat in the mountains of Vermont, I was like, yes, of course, despite the fact that I had literally never meditated before. My only real understanding of silence was putting on noise-canceling headphones at work so no one would talk to me. But love makes you brave or stupid. Or both. Day 1 was fine. The center was beautiful, this huge wooden lodge surrounded by forest. No phones, no talking, no eye contact, no reading, no writing. Just you, your thoughts, and like 60 other people pretending not to notice each other. We sat in silence for meals, meditated for hours, and occasionally listened to a monk give talks about mindfulness and detachment and other things I absolutely did not understand. By day 2, I was losing my mind. Not talking felt like a prison sentence. I didn't realize how much I relied on distractions to get through a day. My inner voice was basically doing a speedrun of every awkward moment of my life. Remember that time in 6th grade when you peed your pants in gym class? Yeah, my brain did. On loop. But the worst part? The gastrointestinal chaos. See, the food was 100% vegan and mostly legumes and raw vegetables, which apparently do not sit well with a guy whose daily diet before this consisted of frozen burritos and Red Bull. My body revolted in a series of escalating warning shots. By day 4, I was producing an alarming amount of gas. Not just normal levels, like cartoonish levels. And since everything was quiet all the time, every accidental fart was like a gunshot in a library. I tried everything. Meditating through it, clenching every muscle, timed farts with throat clearing. Nothing worked. On day 5, during a particularly long afternoon session in the main hall, it happened. I let out a fart so loud, so vibrational, it echoed off the hardwood floor. A seismic event. It wasn't a squeak or even a honk. It was a full-blown trumpet blast. I swear to God I saw a squirrel flinch outside the window. No one could react. That was the worst part. Everyone had to just sit there in awkward, pained stillness like we were all pretending I hadn't just unleashed hell into the air. But I knew. They knew. We all knew. I looked over at Maya, hoping for some look of solidarity, a smirk, something. But she was stone-faced, like she was trying to ascend beyond the physical plane just to avoid association. The rest of the session was agony. I sat in my own shame cloud, contemplating the possibility of just walking into the woods and starting a new life as a hermit. But it didn't end there. Apparently, my body interpreted that one massive release as some kind of green light. I couldn't stop. Over the next few days, I became known silently, of course, as the fart guy. People would sit farther away from me in the hall. I could feel the tension, the shifting mats, the occasional side-eye from fellow meditators. Maya started choosing seats on the opposite side of the room. Once, I caught her sneaking a peppermint oil stick under her nose like a battlefield medic. By day 7, I was in hell. No one had said a word to me, but the social rejection was palpable. I didn't blame them. I hated me too. On day 9, the dam broke. We had our first one-on-one check-in with the retreat leader, the only time we were allowed to speak. I walked into the small office, sat down, and immediately burst into tears. I hadn't spoken in over a week. I was sleep-deprived, spiritually bankrupt, and my girlfriend wouldn't make eye contact with me because my digestive system betrayed me. I told the leader everything. Through sniffles, I confessed my sins. The beans. The burps.
The shame.
He just nodded slowly and said, "Sometimes the body reveals our attachments." Which, cool, but not exactly helpful. After the final bell on day 10, everyone could talk again. You'd think I'd feel relief. Instead, the silence broke like a dam, and everyone was laughing and chatting, except me. I was radioactive. I walked over to Maya, finally ready to talk, to apologize, to explain. She looked at me like I was an ex who cheated on her with her mom. "I can't," she said. I can't unhear it." We drove home in silence. Real silence this time, the kind that means something's over. She broke up with me 2 days later via voice note. I listened to it while eating a triple meat pizza in bed, farting freely for the first time in weeks. I learned a few things. 1. My body is not meant for legumes. 2. Inner peace is hard to find when your colon is staging a revolution. 3. Love might make you do crazy things, but sometimes the craziest thing you can do is just stay home and let her go on the retreat alone. And 4. If you ever go on a silent retreat, bring Gas-X. So this happened about 6 months ago, and I've only just started to emotionally recover enough to write it out. I, 28M, have been dating my girlfriend Maria, 26F, for almost a year now. She's Mexican-American, fluent in both English and Spanish, and her entire family speaks Spanish as their primary language at home. I, however, am the whitest guy you can imagine. I took French in high school because I thought it sounded classier and only absorbed about 20 words of it. The only Spanish I knew came from Dora the Explorer and Taco Bell menus. Maria had always talked about how her abuela grandmother was super traditional and didn't speak English. Her dad wasn't too hot on non-Spanish speaking guys either. So, naturally, when Maria invited me to visit her family in Mexico City for her cousin's wedding, I panicked. I didn't want to seem like that gringo, so like an absolute idiot, I told her that I'd been learning Spanish for a while now. I thought I could cram enough Duolingo in 3 weeks to at least fake it. Spoiler alert, you can't. By the time we landed in Mexico, I had mastered basic greetings, asking for the bathroom, and something about a small green apple. But I didn't want to back down because I was fully committed to the lie now. First evening at her abuela's house, everyone's super warm and welcoming. They speak rapid-fire Spanish around me, and I just keep nodding and smiling like a bobblehead on meth. Maria whispers translations when she can, but I'm trying to impress everyone, so I answer in my garbage Spanish when someone addresses me directly. Her dad asked me if I like tequila, and I confidently responded with "Sí, me gusta tortuga," which, as some of you might know, means yes, I like turtle. Everyone stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. I laughed too, pretending I totally got the joke. It should have ended there, but her uncle, a guy named Hernando who looked like he stepped out of Narcos, was deeply impressed that I was so brave to speak like a native. He started telling everyone I was muy intelligent and casi Mexicano, which I think means almost Mexican. I was riding high on that praise, drunk on tequila and validation. Then came the wedding. Now, Mexican weddings? They go hard. There's dancing, mariachis, endless food, and the open bar is no joke. I was several shots in when Hernando, clearly just as drunk, pulled me aside and said, "Mi sobrino, ven conmigo. Tengo una sorpresa." I caught "come with me" and surprise, and, being the buzzed idiot I followed. He drove us in his matte black SUV, the kind that definitely has tinted windows and secrets. We ended up at what looked like a massive warehouse. Inside were stacks of crates, a bunch of men in leather jackets, and a whiteboard with maps and numbers on it. My heart started pounding. Hernando introduced me to everyone as his nuevo hijo blanco, his new white son. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, until he handed me a manila envelope and said solo para ti. I opened it and found $5,000 in cash and a burner phone. I wanted to scream. Instead, I muttered something like gracias and tried to back out, but Hernando clapped me on the back and said, Iris familia ahora. I didn't sleep that night. I told Maria everything the next day, and she turned white. Apparently, Hernando is the black sheep of the family, not officially involved in anything illegal, but everyone knows to stay away. She hadn't even wanted to invite him, but family's family. We booked an earlier flight back to the US. I tried to ghost Hernando, but the burner phone started blowing up with texts in Spanish. I didn't respond. After a few days, I got a single message in English. You're one of us now. I almost pissed myself. We went to the police. They said unless I had evidence of a crime, there was nothing they could do. I offered them the $5,000, but that just raised more questions. I ended up donating it anonymously to a refugee aid group out of sheer guilt. For months, I was paranoid. Every black SUV made me flinch. I deleted all social media, changed my number, and even stopped using my real name at Starbucks. Maria was furious with me for lying in the first place, but also terrified. We took a break that turned into a breakup. Fast forward to now, I haven't heard from Hernando in months. Maybe he figured out I was a dumbass and not worth the risk. Maybe he found another white son. I'm not sure. What I do know is this. Never lie about speaking a language, especially not to impress people with dangerous uncles. And if someone ever hands you a burner phone in a warehouse, just run. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU by pretending to be fluent in German to impress my girlfriend's parents and accidentally starting an international incident. So this happened about 3 weeks ago, and the repercussions are still unfolding. My girlfriend Anna and I have been dating for a little over a year. Things have been amazing, and I've genuinely been thinking this might be it. She's the one. So when she invited me to fly to Germany with her to meet her family over Easter, I was thrilled. Nervous, but thrilled. Now, here's the thing. I do not speak German. I took a semester of it in college and promptly forgot everything except how to ask where the library is, and even that I do with a heavy American accent. Anna's parents are native Germans. They speak English, but not fluently. Anna has always translated when we video called, and it's been fine. But the night before the flight, I made the incredibly stupid decision to try and impress them. See, I downloaded Duolingo about a month before the trip, thinking it would be cute to surprise them with some phrases. But what started as, oh, I'll learn a few greetings, spiraled into a warped little delusion where I somehow convinced myself that I could hold a casual conversation. Like, full-on delusional. I'd been practicing phrases, watching German YouTubers, and parroting podcasts like a man possessed. Anna mentioned her dad really respected effort and that past boyfriends never even tried to learn German, so in some twisted burst of ego and desperation, I decided I'd fake it, till I made it. I was going to speak as much German as possible and win her family over with charm and cultural sensitivity. Big mistake. We arrive at her parents' place in a beautiful little village in Bavaria. Her mom greets us at the door and offers us something I don't quite catch. She's holding a tray. I panic. My brain rifles through the few dozen words I think I know and lands on what I think is thank you, this is lovely. But what I actually say, confidently and loudly, is Danke, das ist lecker. Thank you, this is delicious. She's holding out a hand towel. Not food. First red flag. Anna gives me a look, but I brush it off and grin like I nailed it. Her dad comes out next, and I try to say something like, hello, I've heard a lot about you. But it comes out as, hello, ich höre Stimmen über dich, which translates to, hello, I hear voices about you.
He squints.
I squint. Anna just rubs her temples. Still, dinner that night is where things really went off the rails. Her parents had invited the neighbors, an older couple who I gather are very important in the community. I'm sitting there at this long table, and I'm determined to keep the German up. Everyone's being patient with me, smiling kindly, correcting me gently. But I'm high on adrenaline and dumplings, so I start winging it. Someone says something about politics, and I try to say, politics are complicated, but instead I say, Politik ist komisch, which means politics are funny. Her dad frowns. The neighbor lady raises an eyebrow. Anna coughs loudly. I try to recover, say something like, the world is crazy lately, huh? But it comes out as, Die Welt ist verrückt heute Abend, which translates more like, the world is insane tonight. Not entirely wrong, but weirdly apocalyptic. The neighbor man starts talking about history, and I think he's mentioning World War II. I know better than to get into anything historical in Germany without knowing what's being said, but I panic. I nod solemnly and try to say, yes, a dark time, which should be Ja, ein Dunkelzeit. But instead I say, Ja, ich war da. Yes, I was there. The table goes silent. Her mom stares. Her dad actually chokes on his beer. The neighbor lady puts her fork down. Anna turns to me, pale as a ghost, and hisses, Asterisk, did you just say you were there? During World War II? Asterisk. I start stammering, trying to backtrack, but the only words that come to mind are alt, old, and Schwarz, black, which I blurt out, thinking I'm saying something like dark past. So now I've just said, old black, out of nowhere. I don't even know what they thought I was trying to say at that point. The next 10 minutes are a chaotic blur of Anna furiously translating, me apologizing in English, and the neighbor lady asking if I had ties to certain groups. Her dad actually asked me to list the presidents I've lived under, to make sure I wasn't 90 years old with a Botox addiction. I even had to show my ID to prove I was born in 1994. Eventually, Anna dragged me outside and asked what the hell I was thinking. I confessed everything, the Duolingo binge, the ego trip, the belief that I could just charm my way through the language barrier. She stared at me for a long time and finally just said, You're lucky, they think this is funny. Kind of. And honestly, her parents took it surprisingly well. Once they realized I wasn't a time-traveling Nazi sympathizer, they actually laughed. Hard. Her dad started calling me Der Spion, the spy, for the rest of the week, and her mom taught me how to properly say, I was not there. But the story did not stop there. A few days later, we go to the town's Easter market. I'm keeping my mouth shut this time, nodding and smiling, when suddenly, someone recognizes me. It's the neighbor lady's sister, who apparently thought I was part of some historical reenactment society or a confused expat with deep trauma. Somehow, the story of the young American who claimed to have been at the Reichstag had made the rounds. Over the next 2 days, several people approached me asking if I was der junge Mann mit den Stimmen, the young man with the voices. One guy offered me a pamphlet about reincarnation. Another asked if I'd seen Napoleon. The worst part? Anna got a call from her uncle in Berlin who asked, with total sincerity, if I was safe to bring to historical landmarks. Needless to say, my grand plan backfired spectacularly. I did not impress Anna's parents with my linguistic skills. I did, however, become something of a legend in their village. Apparently, they now refer to me as der Zeitreisentrottel, the time-traveling fool. We're back home now, and things are fine between Anna and me. We laugh about it, a lot, but she did make me promise never to lie about my language skills again. I've since signed up for proper German classes, and I'm actually learning it now.
Slowly. Carefully.
And every time I hear someone say lecker, I shudder. I, 29M, am not known for being the most romantic guy on earth. My girlfriend, 27F, and I have been together for a little over a year, and she's been incredibly patient with me. So last week, I decided I was going to change things up and surprise her with a candlelit dinner at my place. Not takeout, not delivery, not assembled charcuterie, an actual 3-course, home-cooked meal. She's always the one doing thoughtful things, planning dates, leaving me cute notes, remembering anniversaries of stupid stuff like the first time we shared a cab. So, I wanted to show I could be that guy too. I even cleaned the entire apartment, vacuumed under the furniture, dusted the top of the fridge, Windexed the mirrors. I lit candles. Real ones. I even put on a Spotify playlist called Romantic French Jazz for Lovers, which felt a bit on the nose, but I figured ambience is ambience. The plan was a caprese salad starter, homemade creamy garlic chicken and mashed potatoes for the main, and molten lava cakes for dessert. I had spent all afternoon preparing. I even learned how to properly chiffonade basil. Do you know how many YouTube videos exist for slicing leaves? A concerning amount. Anyway, she was set to arrive at 7. At 6:30, I was in the final stretch, working on the chicken. I had seasoned it, seared it, and was just about to pour in the cream sauce when I noticed I had forgotten garlic. No problem, I thought. I had garlic. Somewhere. I start tearing through drawers and cabinets until I find what looks like a shriveled-up garlic bulb that had maybe fought in a war. But it was garlic, and I was in too deep to care. I peeled it, chopped it, and tossed it in. Within 5 minutes, the entire apartment smelled like Satan's armpit. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was rotten, maybe it was some kind of black market mutant garlic, but it smelled wrong. Like burnt hair, sulfur, and old yogurt had an orgy and birthed this demonic odor. I panicked. I opened all the windows. I turned on fans. I lit more candles. Nothing helped. My chicken now looked like something they'd serve at a haunted medieval tavern. Desperate, I dumped the whole pan into the trash and ran to the store to get more chicken fast. I had just under 25 minutes left. When I got back, things got worse. Apparently, while I was gone, my ultra-sensitive smoke detector had gone off from the previous garlic cloud and, thanks to a recent building-wide safety upgrade, triggered an automatic call to the fire department. So I walk in with a grocery bag in one hand, raw chicken swinging in the other, and I'm greeted by 3 firefighters in full gear standing in my kitchen and a crowd of curious neighbors in the hallway. But wait, it gets worse. One of the firefighters is this absolutely jacked guy named Mark who apparently already knows my girlfriend because they went to college together and she once dated him. I know this because he told me. Immediately. With a kind of smirk that haunts me in my sleep. So while I'm explaining that there's no fire, just a culinary disaster, Mark is like, "Oh, you're dating Lucy? Tell her Mark says hi. She always loved when I made her chicken Alfredo." The audacity. I'm still trying to salvage the evening. I thank the firefighters, close the door, and go back to cooking. I've now got 10 minutes to get this chicken on the stove. I decide to multitask and pop the lava cakes into the oven. I grab the ramekins and shove them in, not realizing that one of them has a tiny crack from when I dropped it 2 weeks ago. 15 minutes later, just as Lucy walks in looking all cute in this dress I love, the damn ramekin explodes in the oven. Like explodes. Not a dainty little pop, but a glass and chocolate battlefield. It sounds like someone threw a rock through my window. She screams. I scream. We both dive to the floor, like it's a war zone. Once we realize we're not under attack, I sheepishly explain that dessert might be delayed. That's when she notices the smell. Not the garlic anymore, oh no. That had faded. This was the smell of molten, glass-laced cake and burning sugar. A new horror. I try to laugh it off, still committed to salvaging something. Anything. I plate the chicken, which is dry, because of course it is, the mashed potatoes, which turned out like glue, and the now sad salad. And I bring it all to the table. That's when she tells me she's allergic to one thing in the entire world, goat cheese. Which I had generously crumbled all over the salad because the label said artisanal, and I thought it would impress her. She's not furious. She's concerned, which is somehow worse. She's like, "Babe, are you okay? Did something happen at work?" So, dinner is scrapped. We end up ordering pizza.
Hawaiian.
Because at that point, we'd already sinned enough. We drink wine straight from the bottle, sit on the floor, and laugh until we cry. The real kicker? As we're finishing the wine, I get a phone call from my landlord, who's furious because the fire department reported irregular smoke patterns, and now he thinks I'm illegally smoking indoors or running some kind of grill operation. This man thinks I'm trying to open a restaurant. In a second-floor walk-up. in Queens. The next morning, I get a formal warning in writing about tenant violations relating to unauthorized cooking equipment. I now have to attend a virtual safety seminar or risk lease termination.
So yeah,
I tried to be romantic and instead nearly gassed my girlfriend, summoned her ex-boyfriend, blew up my oven, and got flagged as a fire hazard. TIFU by accidentally sending a message to my boss that was meant for my girlfriend. It started as a normal Monday morning. I had just returned to work after a long, relaxing weekend and was getting back into my routine. I work at a mid-sized marketing firm, and while things can get stressful during busy seasons, my team is small and we have a pretty laid-back vibe. My boss, let's call him John, is a nice guy, very professional, but easygoing. We get along well, and he trusts me with a lot of responsibilities. He's a little older than me, in his late 40s, and has a calm demeanor. I've been with the company for a few years now, so I'm comfortable with him, and everything has been going great. But this Monday, things took a turn for the worse. I was running a little late that morning, nothing unusual, and was frantically trying to catch up on emails and finish my coffee at the same time. I had a lot of personal things on my mind that morning, including a pretty big argument I'd had with my girlfriend, Sarah, the night before. We had been dating for about a year and had a pretty solid relationship, but like every couple, we had our ups and downs. The argument wasn't anything major, but it was one of those petty arguments that lingered a bit longer than it should have. Anyway, I had messaged Sarah that morning to apologize and try to make up for it. She was a little annoyed, but she was always the type to forgive easily. We had exchanged a few messages and everything seemed fine. Nothing unusual in our conversations, at least not at the time. Now, the main part of my job at the marketing firm involves communicating with clients and working on different campaigns. I use email and Slack all day to send updates, ask questions, and get feedback. Most of the time, it's nothing too exciting, just business as usual. On top of that, I often message Sarah throughout the day, mostly to check in or joke around with her. We have a playful relationship, and it's not uncommon for me to send her messages while working, especially during lunch breaks or when I have a quick moment between tasks. As the day went on, I had to finish a report that was due. It was a lengthy one, with a lot of figures and stats that needed to be double-checked. I was getting frustrated and needed a break, so I decided to take a quick breather and check my phone. I noticed that I had a message from Sarah, nothing out of the ordinary. She had responded to my earlier message about the argument. She sent me a cute reply, saying she'd be happy to put it behind us and that I should stop stressing. Naturally, I decided to respond right away. I was in a bit of a hurry, so I tried to make my reply short but sweet, sending her a message that said, "Okay, babe, I know I messed up, but I'll make it up to you tonight, winky face. Maybe a little dinner and some fun after? What do you think?" Winky face. I quickly hit send, not thinking much about it. I went back to my report, but within a few seconds, I got a response from Sarah that had my heart drop straight to my stomach. But the weird part was, it wasn't Sarah's name that popped up on my screen. It was John's name. My boss.
John.
I froze.
My palms started to sweat.
I had just sent that message to my boss. The message about making it up to you tonight and a little dinner and some fun after was not meant for him. It was meant for my girlfriend. The implications of what I had just done hit me all at once, and I couldn't breathe for a moment. My face turned red as I tried to process what had just happened. I quickly opened the conversation with John, and sure enough, there it was, my message. My very inappropriate message. The one I had just sent to Sarah. It was right there in all its glory. My hands started shaking as I stared at the message, hoping somehow I had dreamed the whole thing up. But no, it was real. It was really real. Without thinking, I immediately typed, "Oh my God, no, 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 and no." I quickly deleted the message, but it was too late. The damage had been done. I couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. My mind raced, trying to come up with a way to fix this, but the more I thought about it, the worse it seemed. I was certain John had already seen the message and knew exactly what had happened. My professional reputation was about to be destroyed over a stupid mistake. In a panic, I quickly typed an apology to John. "John, I am so sorry. That message was not meant for you. It was meant for my girlfriend. I didn't mean to send that to you. Please disregard it. I am so embarrassed." My heart was racing as I hit send, hoping against hope that he would somehow understand and not think I was some kind of weirdo. John responded almost immediately. "No problem, just make sure your phone is working properly." That was an interesting message to receive. I almost collapsed in relief. That was it.
That was all he said.
It wasn't exactly reassuring, but it wasn't a total disaster either. I breathed a huge sigh of relief, though the embarrassment was still there. I felt like I had just aged a few years in those couple of minutes. But the worst part? It wasn't over. As I was recovering from the incident with John, I glanced down at my phone again. I had a message from Sarah. Babe, what was that message you just sent to John? Are you okay?" I stared at the message, horrified. In my rush to apologize to John, I had completely forgotten to check back with Sarah. Now, she knew something had gone wrong, and she was clearly confused. I couldn't take it anymore. I took a deep breath and texted her back. "Babe, I am so sorry. I accidentally sent that message to my boss instead of you. I'm beyond embarrassed right now." Her response came almost immediately. "Oh my God, are you serious? That's hilarious. I can't believe you did that. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I'll be laughing about this all day." I was both relieved and mortified at the same time. Sarah, thankfully, found the humor in it, but the whole thing left me feeling exposed and vulnerable. To make matters worse, I had to go into a meeting with John later that afternoon. I could barely look him in the eye, but he was totally professional as always, acting like nothing had happened. He didn't bring up the message again, and neither did I. In the end, the only lasting effect of this whole ordeal was that I will never, ever again send a text without double-checking the recipient. My relationship with John remains professional, though I still get the occasional smirk from him when I see him at work, but Sarah still brings it up every now and then, laughing about it as if it's the funniest thing in the world. To anyone reading this, always double-check who you're sending messages to, especially when your boss is involved. It's one thing to embarrass yourself in front of a friend, but it's another entirely to do it with your boss. Trust me, you do not want to experience this kind of mishap. At least now I have a funny story to tell, though I'm not sure when I'll stop blushing every time I think about it. And that's how I accidentally sent a super personal, completely inappropriate message to my boss. TLDR, accidentally sent a flirty message meant for my girlfriend to my boss. He saw it and it was super awkward. TIFU by accidentally getting my neighbor arrested for trying to help me during a panic attack. This happened a few months ago, and it still makes me want to curl up and evaporate every time I think about it. For context, I, 28F, live alone in a small apartment in a relatively quiet building. I'm not new to anxiety. I've dealt with panic attacks for years, but on this particular night, the universe decided I was due for one of those full-blown, can't breathe, heart-pounding, end-of-the-world style episodes. It started around midnight after a long, stressful week. I'd just finished doom-scrolling Twitter for an hour while eating leftover pad thai in bed, a series of bad decisions in hindsight. My chest started tightening, my vision got fuzzy, and before I knew it, I was on the floor of my bedroom clutching my phone, trying to remember how to breathe. Normally, I managed to ride these out with deep breathing and grounding exercises. But this one wasn't budging. It was different. I felt like I was genuinely dying, so I texted my older brother. He lives across the city and he's my go-to panic attack hotline, but that night he didn't answer. I tried to call. No dice. So, in my infinite wisdom, I called 911. That part would have been fine if I hadn't immediately regretted it and hung up after blurting out something like, "I think I'm dying. Wait, no, I'm fine. No, wait, I'm not." Cue police being dispatched automatically because I said dying. Here's where it gets worse. Enter Jake, my next-door neighbor. Jake is a friendly guy in his mid-30s, ex-military, kind of quiet but always polite. We chatted a few times in the hallway, and once he helped me carry up some IKEA boxes when the elevator was down. I guess he heard the commotion, or maybe he saw the police lights arriving later. I still don't know how he got involved, but the next thing I know, there's a knock on my apartment door. I freeze. I'm still sitting on the floor, borderline hyperventilating, wearing an oversized hoodie and no pants. Again, decisions were made. I didn't answer. I heard the knock again, Then a voice.
Hey, it's Jake.
You okay in there? The cops are outside. Now, I am not proud of this, but I panicked in a different direction. In my heightened, adrenaline-soaked state, my brain decided that Jake had called the cops on me. Or worse, that maybe he was with them and I was about to be involuntarily taken somewhere. It made zero sense, but if you've ever had a panic attack, you know that logic is not invited to the party. I still didn't answer. Jake must have tried the doorknob, which was unlocked. Again, great job, me. And the door creaked open. I screamed. Full volume, horror movie, blood-curdling scream. I couldn't even see him clearly, but I shrieked, "Get out," and scrambled into my bathroom, slamming the door. This is when the real chaos began. The two police officers who had been walking up the hallway saw Jake standing inside my apartment with me screaming and the front door wide open. So naturally, they drew their weapons and ordered him to the ground. I was in the bathroom, still crying, trying to call 911 again to explain that this was all a misunderstanding while Jake was apparently face down in my living room yelling, "I was just checking on her." Eventually, the police got me to open the bathroom door. I was still trembling, clutching a towel around my legs, and barely able to string a sentence together. They calmed me down, realized I was having a severe panic attack, and called in the paramedics. Meanwhile, poor Jake was outside being questioned for like 30 minutes. He didn't get arrested in the end, thank God, but they did detain him briefly while they figured out if he was trying to hurt me or not. The cherry on top? I had to ride to the ER in an ambulance, and guess who was in the parking lot as they wheeled me out?
Jake.
Holding my house keys because the paramedics asked him to lock up my apartment. The guilt I felt in that moment? Astronomical. His face was a mixture of concern, confusion, and what the actual F*** just happened? When I got out of the hospital the next day, thankfully with no bill thanks to decent insurance, I left an apology note and a Starbucks gift card on Jake's door.
He didn't respond.
For a week. I thought I'd ruined our neighborly acquaintance forever. Then one day, he knocked on my door with 2 beers and a sheepish grin and said, "So, still think I'm breaking in, or can we laugh about this now? We're actually friends now, somehow." We joke about the night of SWAT, and he occasionally checks in on me if he hears anything through the wall. I still cringe when I think about the moment the cops tackled him in my hallway. All the poor guy wanted to do was make sure I was alive, and I repaid him by treating him like a home invader and nearly getting him cuffed. Moral of the story? Always lock your door. Maybe put on pants. And for the love of all that is holy, do not hang up on 911 mid-panic attack. This happened about a month ago, but I'm still dealing with the fallout. I work in a mid-sized marketing firm as a graphic designer. Nothing fancy, just the usual logos, PowerPoint templates, the occasional desperate attempt to make clip art look modern. My boss, who I'll call Ted, is the kind of guy who owns a $300 pen and uses it to stir his coffee. He's a control freak, but one of those charming ones who somehow convinces you that you want to stay late on a Friday night to help him pick a font for his dog's birthday invitation. He also travels a lot for conferences and insists on flying business class because the Wi-Fi is better up front. Anyway, one Thursday afternoon, Ted sticks his head in my office and says, "Hey, got a quick favor to ask. You're going to love this. It's easy. Just a small thing." This is TED code for prepare for psychological warfare. But I was in a good mood and had just finished a major project, so I said sure. The favor? My buddy in the consulate needs a visual redesign of this brochure for an event in Belgium. It's a cultural expo. Government stuff. Very official. Just needs a facelift, nothing crazy. You'll knock it out in an hour. I should have asked questions. I didn't. He sent me the file via Google Drive, and I opened it up. It was a trifold brochure for an international cultural diplomacy event hosted at the Belgian Embassy in Washington, D.C. The kind of thing where dignitaries show up in suits that cost more than my car and drink wine that tastes like regret. The layout was bad, sure, but it wasn't anything I couldn't fix. I replaced the 2007-era fonts, updated the layout, cleaned up the alignment, threw in some high-res images from royalty-free sites, and decided to zhuzh it up with a clean, minimalistic flag collage on the back panel, a little design flex. Here's where the TIFU begins. While creating the collage, I Googled high-quality flags of each participating country. I was flying through them. France, Germany, Japan, Brazil, South Korea. Then I got to the flag of Lithuania. And I screwed up. Apparently, the first image that came up when I Googled Lithuania flag HD was from some satirical site. It looked legit at first glance. Green on top, yellow in the middle, red on the bottom. Standard tricolor. But the version I downloaded had something extra, a watermark of a cartoon stork wearing sunglasses and holding a sign that said, "Got storks?" I didn't notice. I was working on a tiny screen, and the watermark was faint, like a shadowy joke waiting to destroy my career. So, I submitted the final brochure to Ted. He was thrilled. "This is amazing."
Clean. Bold.
Professional. "I'm sending it to the consulate now." I went home thinking I'd nailed it. Fast forward to Monday morning. I walk in and everyone is silent. Like biblical silence. People avoid eye contact. My desk is covered in post-its that just say, "Call Ted," in increasingly aggressive handwriting. I get to his office and he's pacing like a man who just bet his mortgage on a horse named Spaghetti Knees. He looks at me and says, "Did you vet the materials you sent?" I say yes, defensively. He spins his monitor around. There it is. My beautiful brochure. Blown up on his screen. And on the back, the flag collage. And on Lithuania's flag, clear as day now, is the stork.
Smirking at me.
Got storks. Turns out, this brochure had not only been printed, thousands of copies, but had also been distributed to embassies, dignitaries, and attendees across multiple countries. The Lithuanian ambassador personally called the U.S. consulate to ask if the stork was an inside joke, or if it was a subtle insult. Apparently, the stork is associated with some kind of fringe political movement in Lithuania that's known for conspiracy theories and bird-themed propaganda. I had no idea. But someone at the embassy did. And they were pissed. Damage control was immediate and brutal. Ted had to personally call the consulate, apologize, and recall the brochures. An emergency reprint was ordered. I had to sit through a 3-hour meeting about geopolitical sensitivity in visual media. A rep from the Belgian embassy Skyped in to lecture me about the symbolic weight of national imagery. She had a British accent, which made it feel even worse. But it wasn't over. A week later, I got a call from someone claiming to be from a Lithuanian cultural committee. They asked if I would consider designing a modern reinterpretation of national icons. I thought it was a prank. It wasn't. I declined, obviously, but somehow my name had become associated with avian satire in Lithuanian design circles. Even worse, someone on Reddit got hold of the brochure and posted it to r/design cringe. It blew up. The top comment? "Imagine being the guy who accidentally declared meme war on Lithuania." I wish I could say that wasn't me, but it was. I've since changed all my search settings to exclude any site that doesn't end in .gov or .org. Ted now refers to me exclusively as Flag Boy. HR made me take a half-day workshop called Navigating International Symbolism in Branding. And every now and then, I still get DMs from people sending me stork memes with the caption, "Never forget." I never will. To fool by lying about being a semi-pro chef to impress a girl and accidentally poisoning half a wedding party. So this happened last year, but I'm still not entirely over it. For some backstory, I, 27M, am not a chef. I work in IT. I can make a mean grilled cheese, and I have a decent chili recipe that I bring to potlucks, but that's the extent of my culinary prowess. My roommate, on the other hand, is an actual line cook, and I've picked up some basic skills from him. Keyword: basic. Cue Olivia. We met through mutual friends at a bar and instantly hit it off. She's gorgeous, funny, and way out of my league. In the excitement of trying to impress her, I might have exaggerated my cooking skills a tiny bit.
Okay.
I flat out lied. I told her I used to work part-time as a semi-pro chef while putting myself through college. I even made up the name of a fake bistro that shut down during COVID. She was impressed, and I, being a moron, just doubled down. Fast forward a few weeks. We're dating, and I'm already panicking about how to keep up the lie. But then she drops the bomb. Her cousin Rachel is getting married in 2 months. The couple's caterer bailed last minute, some sort of fire at the restaurant, and they're desperate. Olivia tells them, I can cook. Not just cook, cater the whole wedding. It was supposed to be 45 people. Manageable, right? No problem, I say with fake confidence that makes me want to cry. It'll be an honor. The bride and groom are thrilled. Olivia looks at me like I hung the moon. I am in full panic mode. I call my roommate Dan, the real cook, and beg for help. He's got a new job and can't take time off to do the event, but he agrees to help me prep the menu, go over food safety, and walk me through logistics. For the next 6 weeks, I turn my apartment into a test kitchen. I binge Gordon Ramsay videos, buy secondhand kitchen gear, and attempt tastings that leave my friends both amused and concerned. Eventually, I land on a 3-course meal that I can semi-replicate without dying of stress: a roasted beet and goat cheese salad, lemon herb chicken with wild rice and green beans, and a chocolate lava cake. Sounds fancy. It wasn't, but it looked the part. And that, my friend, was the beginning of the end. Wedding day comes. I've enlisted 2 friends, Max and Julia, to help plate and serve. They know nothing about food but can carry trays and smile. The venue is a rustic barn out in the countryside. Cute, cozy, minimal kitchen equipment. I bring most of the prep already done, with the plan to finish and reheat on site. It's chaos. We're missing half the serving trays. The oven is temperamental. The fridge is basically a glorified cooler. I'm sweating like a pig in my chef whites, which are really just a thrifted coat from Spirit Halloween with the label ripped off. But somehow it's working. The salad goes out fine. People seem to like it. Chicken's a bit overdone, but no one complains. I feel like I might actually pull it off. Then the lava cakes. The plan was to pre-make them, keep them cool, and warm them slightly, so the center stayed gooey. But the fridge situation screwed that. They were too warm for too long. Still, they looked okay. We served them. About 45 minutes later, it began. A bridesmaid puked behind the gift table. Then someone's uncle clutched his stomach and sprinted toward the bathroom. One by one, guests began to vanish from the dance floor like they were being picked off by a gastrointestinal sniper. The porta-potties had a line stretching down the gravel path. People were moaning. Someone said the word botulism. The bride was crying. I was hiding. Max texted me from the bushes, I'm not kidding, abort. Everyone's dying. Run. Turns out, the lava cakes were the culprit. My genius idea of storing the batter with eggs and letting it half-sit in a sketchy fridge for hours created a bacteria bonanza. Between improper cooling, lack of refrigeration, and me being a fraudulent idiot, I managed to give what was eventually diagnosed as food poisoning to 27 people. I personally helped clean up vomit from a hay bale. The wedding was cut short. Olivia found me sitting behind the barn, head in my hands, and I had to come clean. Everything. The fake chef job. The made-up bistro. The Halloween jacket. I expected her to slap me or, at the very least, never speak to me again. Instead, she started laughing. Not a normal laugh, a weird, exhausted, bordering on hysterical laugh. Apparently, her mom had already suspected I was full of it based on the way I held a knife. Who knew there was a wrong way to chop parsley? And her cousin Rachel, the bride, later admitted she picked up food poisoning on her bachelorette party in Mexico and called it karma for inviting her ex. Still, I was persona non grata for a while. The bride's mom referred to me as that toilet terrorist. Olivia stuck around, though. Said the whole thing was weirdly honest. She appreciated that I came clean and helped manage the damage instead of running away like a coward. Debatable, but okay. We're still together. I'm not allowed near any family gatherings involving food. At Thanksgiving, I brought bottled water and a store-bought pie with the receipt taped to it. Also, I now take cooking classes. Real ones. Moral of the story: don't fake being a chef to impress a girl. Just learn to make a solid carbonara and be honest. And never, ever, trust a barn fridge in summer. This happened 2 weeks ago, and I'm just now emotionally prepared to talk about it. I live in a quiet suburb, the kind of neighborhood where everyone knows each other's dog's name, but not their actual name. Except for one neighbor, Rachel. She's in her late 20s, bubbly, super into yoga, and lives 3 doors down from me. We've exchanged enough friendly waves and occasional porch small talk that I thought we were on good terms. About a month ago, she stops by my place looking stressed and says she's going on a last-minute 10-day trip to Costa Rica with her sister. Her usual pet sitter bailed, and she's desperate. "It's just for my cats," she said. "They're super chill. You won't even notice they're there." I like animals. I had a cat as a kid. I thought, hey, I can scoop some litter, toss a few treats, and play laser pointer champion for a few minutes a day. Easy peasy. I agree. She hands me a key and a neatly printed page of instructions, which I skim like an idiot. I should have known I was walking into a hell circus when the top of the page said, "Do not, under any circumstances, let them out." Now, before I go further, let me introduce the cats. There were 5 of them. 1, Jasper, big, black, and lazy. Not an issue. 2, Miso, gray fluffball, super skittish. 3, Tuna, white with 1 blue and 1 green eye. Stares like he's judging your soul. 4, Minx, tiny calico, fast as hell, also apparently pure evil. 5, Kevin, orange tabby, a menace to society. Day 1 was fine. They watched me like I was an intruder, which fair. I scooped the litter, fed them, even sat on the couch for a while, so they get used to me. Miso eventually sniffed my shoe. Progress. Day 3 is when things start going sideways. I walk in and notice the smell is worse than usual. One of them, spoiler, Kevin, had diarrhea all over the bathroom tile. Fine, gross but manageable. I clean it up, but while I'm doing this, I hear the unmistakable sound of something falling. I run into the kitchen and see that someone, again, Kevin, knocked over a half-full container of dry food and is now face-first inside it. I go to pick him up and he bolts. Bolts. Out the kitchen, past me, and straight into the backyard through the sliding glass door I apparently didn't close properly. Cue panic. Rachel's words echo in my head. Do not let them out. I drop everything and run outside, expecting Kevin to be chilling under a bush. Nope. He's gone. Full-on mission. Impossible stealth mode. I spend the next hour walking the neighborhood, shaking a treat bag and whisper shouting, "Kevin," which, by the way, makes you sound completely unhinged. I knock on a few doors. One old lady tells me she saw an orange cat book it like a bat out of hell into the storm drain down the road. Great. I return defeated. The other cats are glaring at me like I've betrayed some ancient code. I leave out food and hope Kevin comes back. Day 4. No Kevin. I don't sleep that night. I dream of Rachel coming back early, seeing me catless, and setting me on fire with her mind. Day 5. Still no Kevin. I print lost cat flyers. I post in 5 Facebook neighborhood groups. I get exactly 1 reply that just says, "Maybe he didn't like you, lol." Thank you, Brenda. Very helpful. That night, I decide to try a bait trap. I set up a humane cage with some stinky tuna, not the cat, the actual fish, and wait in my car nearby. I sit there for hours. Finally, movement. I see an orange shape. It creeps closer, enters the cage. Trap shuts. I run over, victorious. It's not Kevin. It's a raccoon. The raccoon is furious. I now have to figure out how to release a pissed-off raccoon without dying. I call animal control and somehow avoid rabies. Day 6. Kevin returns. At 3 a.m., I hear scratching at Rachel's back door. I stumble downstairs half asleep, and there he is, sitting like he owns the place. I open the door, and he just saunters and like, "Sup?" I want to cry and scream at the same time. He goes straight to the food bowl, eats like nothing happened, then curls up in a shoebox. I almost text Rachel to tell her what happened, but I realize there's no way to do that without her having a meltdown while on vacation. So I don't. Day 7 to 10, I'm in full overcompensation mode. I bring them catnip toys. I clean their litter twice a day. I give them sardines. Kevin acts like he didn't just mentally scar me. Rachel gets home on day 11, glowing and tan. She asks how everything went. I lie. I say it was mostly smooth. I don't mention Kevin's criminal adventure. I figure if he's acting normal, she'll never know. And then she picks him up and laughs. Oh my God. Did he get out again? He always comes back filthy. Little dirt gremlin. Again? She knew he was an escape artist and didn't say a word. I smiled, told her everything was great, and went home to stare at a wall in silence for 2 hours. And the cherry on top? 3 days later, she texts me, "Hey, I might go to Bali next month. Think you'd be up for another round of cat sitting?" Winky face. No, Rachel. I would rather fight the raccoon again. TIFU by pretending to know sign language to impress a girl, then accidentally getting involved in a police investigation. So this happened about 3 weeks ago, and the cringe still wakes me up at night. I, 28M, work at a local bookstore/cafe, the kind of cozy, hipster-y place where everyone pretends to be more cultured than they actually are. One of our regulars is this beautiful girl named Emily. She's smart, funny, wears vintage band t-shirts that are actually from her dad's collection, and can recite Sylvia Plath poems from memory. Naturally, I've been nursing a quiet, cowardly crush on her for about 5 months. A few weeks ago, Emily came in with a guy I hadn't seen before. Tall, athletic-looking, and this is important, he communicated entirely in sign language. They sat by the window, and she signed back with surprising fluency. I overheard her telling another customer that he was her brother, that he was deaf, and that she'd grown up signing. Now, I don't know what possessed me. Ego, desperation, probably both, but something inside me decided this was my in. The perfect quirky, charming, fate-sent opportunity to stand out. Because I do know a few basic signs. Not ASL, more like the 3 or 4 gestures you pick up from YouTube or movies. I figured I could fake the rest. How hard could it be? So when Emily came up to the counter later, alone, I smiled and signed hello, and then what I thought was, "Nice to meet you." Judging by her raised eyebrows, I might have signed, "Your fish is dead," or "I eat spiders." But she looked intrigued. "You signed?" she asked, visibly impressed. Here's where I should have come clean.
But no.
I doubled down like an idiot. I nodded and said, "A little. I'm not fluent, but I can hold a basic conversation." She lit up. "That's so cool. You should come to Deaf Game Night this Friday. It's at the rec center downtown. My brother's organizing it. It's super chill. Just games, food, hanging out." My brain screamed no, but my mouth said, "Absolutely. That sounds awesome." Fast forward to Friday night. I spent the entire day binge-watching ASL tutorials on 2x speed, trying to memorize enough to fake my way through 2 hours. Spoiler, you can't cram a language in 8 hours. My brain retained about 5%, and most of that was just fingerspelling random letters. I show up at the rec center, and the place is packed. Maybe 40 people, most of them deaf or hard of hearing, everyone signing at lightning speed. It was like jumping into a foreign film without subtitles. I panicked immediately. Emily greeted me and introduced me to her brother, Alex, who smiled and signed something. I froze.
Panicked.
Then, in a moment of sheer lunacy, I nodded, smiled, and gave a thumbs up like a tourist in a war zone. Emily laughed nervously and said, "You're so confident."
Nope.
Just stupid. We sat down at a board game table with Alex and 2 other deaf guys. The game was code names. You need to give word clues and guess words based on associations. The kicker? We had to sign everything. No verbal communication allowed. It was a deaf game night rule. Inclusivity and all that. I tried to bow out gracefully. Said I'd just watch. But Alex signed something to Emily, who turned to me and said, "He says you should play. It's good practice." I wanted the earth to open and swallow me. Instead, I nodded like a broken bobblehead. When it was my turn to give clues, I panicked and tried to fingerspell cat, but spelled carp. Then I gestured wildly and ended up poking myself in the eye. Everyone laughed, but I could feel the suspicion brewing. Alex looked at me like someone watching a dog do algebra. At one point, I attempted to sign blue, but may have signed urinate instead. That's when Alex leaned over and asked, through Emily, where I'd learned ASL. My face went hot. I mumbled something about self-study, then excused myself to the bathroom. In the hallway, I nearly hyperventilated. I decided I'd sneak out. Just go home, block everyone, and start a new life in Idaho. But as I was leaving, I heard shouting. Two men were arguing loudly in the parking lot, and suddenly someone ran inside, yelling for help, in ASL. People rushed out. I followed out of curiosity, only to see Alex confronting one of the guys. Emily explained, one of the men had his wallet stolen and the guy accused was saying he didn't do it, but couldn't sign. That struck Alex as odd, since the accused had claimed earlier to be deaf. Police arrived, and somehow in the confusion someone said, "That guy signs. He can interpret," and pointed at me. I froze. I tried to protest, but the cops were already turning toward me, grateful expressions on their faces. "We just need someone who can interpret for the deaf guy. You speak ASL, right?" There were so many outs. I could have just said no. Could have said I'm rusty. But my brain was a carousel of bad decisions.
Sure, I said.
I can help. I walked over to the suspect. The man stared at me.
I stared at him.
Then I threw out the only question I could think of. Name? He didn't answer. I signed again. Still nothing. Then he signed something, fast, angry, aggressive. I caught maybe one sign, possibly chicken or police, and just nodded like I understood. I turned to the cops and said, "He says he didn't do it. Can you ask where he was before the wallet went missing?"
Panic.
I made vague gestures. The man looked confused. Signed again. I repeated my thumb-twiddling charade and turned back. "He says he was by the vending machines." Alex appeared beside me, and after watching for 10 seconds, muttered to Emily, who then said to the officer, "He's not interpreting anything. He doesn't understand ASL." Everything stopped. The suspect said something in perfect English. "Yeah, no, I don't know sign language." I never said I was deaf. The cops looked at me. "You don't sign?" one of them asked. I shook my head. "I mean, I thought I did. I don't. I really don't." Alex looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. Emily wouldn't even make eye contact. The officer sighed. "You impersonated an interpreter during an investigation." I started babbling. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to impress her. I didn't think I'd actually, I just wanted to play board games. It was pathetic. They let me go with a warning, but I was told in no uncertain terms never to offer my services in a language I don't speak. Fair enough. Emily hasn't been back to the bookstore since. I don't blame her. I've learned my lesson. Never fake fluency. Especially not in front of a room full of people who actually know the language. And definitely not in front of the cops. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.